Welcome back to Ask Radrat, a series I haven't done in over a year, at least that long, and I am excited to get back into it. If you have any questions, you got to go to radratvideo.com to submit them. My inbox is still pretty full because it's been a while, but submit yours if you want to see it in the future. First question today is from Ed Santos Art. I've been seeing a lot more freestyle skating videos on Instagram lately. It makes me wonder, do you think freestyle skateboarding would get as popular as street skating or maybe even more popular? I don't think it will. I see a ton of it too, but you know, once you like a couple of them, and suddenly that's all it's gonna show you. I don't think it's getting significantly more popular. You know, I don't think the major accounts are reposting freestyle stuff that often. I know sometimes every now and then, but the big problem with freestyle is that it doesn't have the drama and excitement of street. If there's a big gap to a handrail, or there's like a really long tail slide and he's going over grass and you don't know if he's going to be able to hold his balance and he's holding it and pops out at the end, like that stuff is obviously difficult for someone who doesn't skate or they're just getting started in skating. But for freestyle, if you are on the truck and you flip it this way and land back on the truck, or you switch to the opposite one, it's not obvious how hard that is. It's incredibly hard, but you know, you have to know more about freestyle to understand how hard something is. And the speed and excitement and drama of street is a lot more appealing to most than someone stationary in a parking lot. No matter how hard the thing is, no matter how good the camera work is, it's always going to be a little bit more interesting to watch street. And that's coming from someone who loves freestyle, but I don't think it's ever going to overtake street. The next question is from Dawson. What is the hardest late flip trick variation possible? Does a kickflip underflip still hold the title as the hardest late trick? I don't know if it ever had the title. I mean, there's certain ones that are incredibly difficult, of course. But since we're going to make something up, I'm going to make up a trick that I think would be incredibly difficult, even though it would be possible. Okay, so a kickflip, and then front foot late heel. Okay, we'll start there. That would be pretty difficult to start with, but instead of just a late heel, we're going to do a late inward heel. So you have to kick the board just right to make it spin and flip at the same time with one flick. I think that would be very difficult. But let's step it up more. Instead of it being a kick flip, it'll be a front side flip. So a front side flip, late inward heel flip. I think that is the hardest late trick that is possible. And of course you can make them both triples if you want it to be harder. But I think as far as like it could probably be done, but it'd be really awkward and really difficult, that is my proposal for you. The next question is from Will. If skateboard contests become more frequent, like every week for a season, could you see it becoming something like Monday Night Football? Or is skateboarding just too abstract to drive the same kind of viewing audience? Would you flick on the TV in your stained white tank top, crack open a cold beer, and watch an SLS event in your recliner after a hard day at the construction site? I grew up in Michigan, and we have two big college football teams. There is the University of Michigan and Michigan State, and everybody knows what side you prefer. For me, I was a Michigan guy, and it didn't matter like if I cared about the team or even cared about the sport. Everyone knew what side that you were on, and if you live somewhere where there's multiple sports teams, you know. And it's very much an us versus them. We got this new coach, we got the budget where we're going to get this new, all that type of stuff. And in skateboarding, you just don't have that. And there's no way to add that in. Unless they make it into a team sport, there's no way that you're going to get the people who are so invested in this team that they call this group of skaters we. Like, I'm part of it. We got the budget for this. We've been training in the off season. Until skateboarding can get something like that going, which I don't think it should, until that starts happening, there's no way that skateboarding will start to act like a typical sport as far as the people who like to watch it. All right, the next series of questions are from Shanquanita. It is a series of true or false questions. I thought it would be kind of fun. Tony Hawk cannot do a big spin flip. False. I've seen him do one. Finger flips always flip in a heel flip direction. False. Most freestyle skaters will do it that way. I think it's a little bit easier, but a lot of street skaters, when they first try to learn them, they just immediately do a kick flip, or they grab it upside down and do it like a heel flip, but you can do them both ways. They don't have a different name. Radrat has been kicked out of a skate spot or park before. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've been kicked out of plenty of spots, had the cops come, had security come. I've been kicked out of plenty of spots. Muska flips are impossible in transition. I'm going to call that one false. So that is a frontside flip that is fully end over ends, kind of like that. The weird thing about it is you have to catch it all the way. Like, you can't catch it halfway and slowly spin around, but he still did them down drops and gaps all the time. So like, you could still do it. In fact, doing it flatter, I think, would be harder on a ramp. Doing tricks at altitude or places above sea level will significantly affect your skating. False. Technically, the higher up you get, the further away from the core of the earth is, so you are experiencing less of the pull of gravity. You can test that with some very sophisticated instruments, but there's no way you would ever feel the difference. As long as you're up here for at least a day, for your blood to get used to it, you got to produce more red cells to be up in the altitude. As soon as you do that, you're fine. It's not going to affect the physics of skateboarding at all. You can do ghetto birds and fakie. I'm going to say true. I know traditionally it was a nollie hard flip, and then you would catch it and spin backside, which is the same way the board was spinning. Nowadays, everyone considers it a hard flip. So like a hard flip and then spinning late backside. So there's no reason you couldn't do that in fakie. It's not the traditional Kareem Campbell style, but you know, terms change. It's impossible to grind escalators. I'm going to call that true. I've never seen it done. They're always like the handrails are so soft. I think it'd be possible to jump up on it and stall and then like ride it down. I think you could do that, but could you actually ollie up and grind down it? Not even slide, but grind down it? I don't think so. If you are right foot dominant, ollies will be higher in regular stance. I'm going to say false. It's most likely neither, but if I were to pick one, I would guess it'd be the opposite way, because at some point, the more height you get from the ollie comes from your front foot, because you're pulling up the board. It's more of the technique. You can jump the same both ways, right? So it's and the pop is really not that difficult. So once you get the pop down, the more height you get comes from pulling the board up with you, which is more on your front foot. So if your right foot is the one you're good with, there's a decent chance that pulling it up would be easier with that foot. I think it'll be the same both ways, but who knows? The heavier you are, the easier it will be to do pressure flips. False. I think it makes sense. The more you weigh, the more weight you put on the board and more pressure, so the more it could flip. I get that could be true, but at some point, the more you weigh, the less you can jump. You know, like there's a balance. There's a halfway point. You could be too light to comfortably do one, but I think you could also be too heavy to comfortably do one. So I get where that's coming from, but I'm going to give that one a false. You cannot do Bennett grinds backside. That one is technically true. So for a Bennett grind, you approach front side, you spin backside into a switchback Smith. Right, and you can reverse that trick around, but it's called a barley grind if you do it that way. So you can do the trick, you can do what would be a frontside Bennett, but you can't call it that. It's just the kind of thing where when you name tricks after people, the name can only work for the versions they did. You know, it's a technicality, but it is technically true that you can't do a frontside Bennett. So that is it for now. Thanks for your questions. If you have any of your own, go to radratvideo.com. There's a form on the homepage. Send them right into a special inbox, and you should be seeing me here a bit more often. Thanks for hanging out.